The Gibson Les Paul, an iconic guitar design that has stood the test of time for over 70 years. And if you're someone who likes to buy guitars or are a collector of guitars, you have more than likely had at least one of these iconic instruments pass through your hands at some point. Considered by many to be the pinnacle of that design is the Gibson Les Paul Custom, a guitar that many people, including myself, lust over and rests firmly atop the Gear Goals mountain. I've been lucky enough to procure a number of these guitars over the years, including the two sitting beside me. And now, I'm gonna sell them. And here's why. Alright guys, hope you're doing great out there today. If this is your first time here at my channel, my name is Kyle, and what I do is I typically take all sorts of awesome high gain related guitar gear, I record it with a simple setup, and I give you the unprocessed audio on your end. But today, I wanted to have a little discussion about when is it time to sell guitars that you might love. For some people, like myself, that's a really difficult decision. For others, not so much. They don't form any sort of attachment or emotional bond with an instrument. It's just a tool, and as soon as they're done using it for the job that they needed it for, it's easy for them to go ahead and just get it on out of here. So yesterday, I actually posted a picture of these two beautiful guitars on my social media accounts and said,
I think I have to make the hard decision to finally let these two guitars go from my collection.
And as I said in the intro of this video, the Gibson Les Paul Custom is like my personal dream guitar. As far as production guitars go, guitars that aren't insanely rare or insanely difficult to get your hands on, the Gibson Les Paul Custom has always been at the top of that mountain for me of guitars that I kind of just lust after and guitars that I really want to add to my collection and not have to sell them. But even saying that, I have sold a number of Gibson Les Paul Customs from my collection already multiple times throughout the years. In fact, right before I started my channel, I had 6 Norlin Les Paul Customs that I sold prior to all of the prices skyrocketing and going through the roof because of, I'm sure you probably know why. But with that being said, when I typically pick up one of these guitars, these Les Paul Customs, it's usually for myself to keep, and I don't necessarily have the intention to let it go down the road. Now, it's no secret that the Les Paul is my absolute favorite guitar. It is the guitar that I gravitate towards. Gibsons in particular, for me, they just have something special about them in the way that they sound and the way that they feel. You may disagree, and I'm sure you'll leave your comments down below letting me know, already cracking those knuckles and getting those fingers nice and warmed up to tell me how wrong that I am. And that's perfectly fine. That's your opinion. I'm just sharing mine with you guys. But as much as I love these guitars, I've always done a really good job, at least in my opinion, of just kind of weeding out the ones that I don't necessarily feel are the best guitars for me. So what do I mean by that? I have had no less than 100 Gibson Les Pauls come through my hands over the last 8 years of guitar collecting. That's a lot of guitars. And I can usually tell right away when I get a new one into my collection whether it's going to be a keeper or not. I am generally pretty good at sitting down and playing a guitar and feeling it out, and within the first minute to 2 minutes, really being able to tell if I'm going to connect with that guitar long term or not. And for as many Les Pauls that are in my collection, I currently have close to 20. Actually, I think it might be more than that now. I have obviously sold way more than that of the ones that have passed through my hands because they just didn't quite resonate with me. They just didn't connect with me. They were beautiful guitars, most of them. Some of them I still look at pictures of and I get that hint of regret being like, oh man, I shouldn't have sold that thing. But then I have to remind myself that I sold them for a reason, and that's because I just didn't feel like, for me, they lived up to the other Les Pauls in my collection. So recently, one of my dogs actually had to have an emergency surgery, which was extremely expensive. Luckily, he pulled through and he has no complications, and he hopefully has another good few years with us being the bestest boy, and I'm honestly super happy about that. But because of those costs due to the surgery, I have really started to assess certain pieces of my collection and decide whether I should keep these things or not. And two of the first guitars that I really started to put some thought into were the guitars that you see here, a 1980 Gibson Norlin era Les Paul Custom.
Hello, what you doing?
I'm not really good with directions when I'm looking in a mirror, and my 2015 Silverburst Les Paul Custom. These two guitars, and particularly the Silverburst, were just absolute dream guitars for me when I bought them. Like, the allure of having a vintage Les Paul Custom in your collection is somebody who loves these guitars. It's just like, it's almost like a must if you're somebody who actually does buy and sell a lot of guitars. But with the Silverburst has always been my favorite finish, and it just seems like Silverburst Les Paul Customs are really hard to come by at a good price. So I happened to find one of these right at the beginning of the pandemic, got a really great price on it, and was super excited to own it. Like, literally, it was one of those guitars where I would just look at and just get a smile on my face, because I'm like, I can't believe I tracked one of these down. Like, I'm incredibly fortunate to be able to own this guitar. But to be honest, I don't really play them, like, ever. And usually when I do, I pick them up and I'm kind of cycling through some of my Les Pauls, and when I compare them to other Les Pauls in my collection, they just don't quite give me the same feeling. Like, I don't enjoy playing them quite as much. There's just something about these guitars that just doesn't connect for me. I truly believe that every single guitar has its own voicing, it has its own feel, it has its own resonance. Like, each guitar, like, really has its own soul, I guess. And just like with people, there are some that you are going to just connect and resonate with, and it's an awesome experience, it's an awesome relationship, and others, not so much. Now, neither of these guitars are bad. There's nothing wrong with either of them, and there's nothing that makes them subpar. It's just when I play them, the way that they feel and the way that they sound just isn't for me. So circling back around to that social media post that I made, this is all off the top of my head, and I'm very ADD, so I'm trying to tie this all together. I posted about these two guitars and said, I think that it's time that I make the hard decision to let these two beautiful guitars go. Beautiful. And I kind of just like put a question up there to get some engagement on the post that was like, what would you do? And almost unanimously, people were like,
don't sell those guitars. You're gonna regret it.
A couple of them were speaking in terms of the financial value of these and how the Norlin era guitar will appreciate more than likely. I'm still pointing to the wrong guitars. But most people were saying that they thought that I would regret it on like an emotional level. Because like I mentioned a couple times throughout this video, these are not easy guitars to come by. And I don't know that in the future, I'll be in a financial standpoint where I'll be able to just buy one if I want one. So they do have a point. They're not gonna be easy guitars to track down and put back in my collection if I ever do feel regret. But here's the thing, and this is really only a question that I myself can answer. Do I love these guitars enough that I will regret selling them in the future? And I honestly think that the answer is no. And the reasons for that are everything that I have previously mentioned in this video. So I figured I would just kind of throw a video up talking about this and basically say, like, if somebody like me who has hoarder tendencies in the first place, I collect gear like it is nobody's business. My guitar collection at this point is over 50. Way too many, to be completely honest. And I really have a hard time letting go of instruments from my collection, especially ones like these that are just the pinnacle of guitar collecting for me personally. And I have enough willpower and I have enough critical thought processing or something along those lines to be able to deduce that I should sell these guitars because they're not really doing anything for me other than sitting in a corner and me saying that I own them. And let's be honest, those are not good reasons for keeping guitars that are worth multiple thousands of dollars. So if you guys are experiencing anything like this with guitars from your collection where maybe you love a certain guitar, but it doesn't resonate with you, like you love the idea of the guitar or something like that, but it just never quite did it for you, and the thought of selling that guitar is difficult because you worked really hard to track it down over the years. Why am I all blown out in the camera? Hello? But if you're like me and you're kind of in a similar situation, hopefully this video gives you a little bit of insight into whether you should sell that guitar or not. Hopefully it provides a couple of points for you to kind of think on and make the right decision for yourself, because that decision is going to be different for everybody. Not everybody is going to come to the same conclusion that I am, and that's totally fine. It really is something that you should decide on an individual basis, but maybe those are points that you hadn't necessarily thought about before. I know for me, the thought of selling Les Pauls generally does not cross my mind. I usually will sell other things in their place in order to hang on to them, because I do love those guitars so much. And you know, every time I think about selling a Les Paul, especially from standard level and up, I know that I'll have a difficult time tracking another one down at a price that I personally am willing to pay. And in some cases of my guitars, not necessarily these ones, but some of the ones that I really love, like replacing one that I just really get along with, one that just really does it for me, one that really pumps my nads, if you will. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the video. So if you guys have any thoughts on this subject, if you're in a similar situation and you've been struggling with these thoughts, let me know down below in the comments. I'm really curious to see if I'm kind of alone in this boat out here in the middle of Gear Ocean, or if this is a more common problem than I think and I'm not the only one struggling with these decisions. Or are you the type of person that just never sells gear, period? You buy it and you keep it for life. You're not the type of person that's constantly going out and getting something new and something different every other week, constantly switching your collection up. You buy something and it is there, it is yours, and everybody else better keep their grubby little mitts off of it. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys. Hope you got some sort of entertainment or information out of this video. If you did, it would mean a lot to me if you would hit that like button. If this is your first time here, glad to have you here. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more content sort of like this. I will be having more videos coming like this in the future because I enjoy discussing these topics. I enjoy talking about gear and trying to use my two brain cells to put together some good content for you guys. Thanks so much for watching. Kyle here again. We'll see you next time.
You know what this wall is missing? Another amp. There we go.